We are live on YouTube. Okay, we're live.
All right, so good morning, everyone. The virtual meeting of the Cultural Resources Commission will now come to order. I'm Jerry Bell, Commission Chair. Quorum has been established with members how many members, Kim, in attendance? We have a quorum. Today is Wednesday, March 9, 2022, and it's 10:02 a.m. Pursuant to Act 220, Session Laws of Hawaii 2021, which amended the Sunshine Law to allow meetings to be remotely conducted online effective January 1, 2022, Cultural Resources Commission meetings will be held online until further notice. The location listed on the published agenda is open to the public to provide testimony. Commission members and applicants will participate in this meeting via the Zoom interactive video conference platform. A link to the YouTube live streaming is provided on the county website. All reports and surveys reviewed during this hearing will be available on the county website. Minutes of this meeting will be transcribed and posted on the Planning Department's website. Members of the public who have registered to testify will join the meeting via Zoom, and statements will be taken at the time their agenda item is called to order. Staff, please verify if any members of the public have registered to provide verbal testimony and that all written testimony received, if any, has been distributed to all commissioners.
Hi, Chair. There has been nobody registered to provide testimony, and no written testimony has been received.
Thank you, Kim.
We have seven members in attendance.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to introduce Kamuela Plunkett, planner for the commission, and ask that he introduce his staff members.
Aloha, Chair and members of the commission. For the county, we have myself, Kamuela Plunkett. We have Kim Tanaka, Commission Secretary. We have our Zoom host support, Shauna Blackford. We also have Corporation Counsel, Jean Campbell. And we also have April Supernut. And I think that's all we have from the county.
That's awesome. Thank you, Kamu. So commissioners present today are myself. And what I'd like to do is just go through, and if you would introduce yourselves, please, starting with Matt, since you're the first on my screen.
Can I interrupt super briefly, Jerry?
Sure.
Can I ask if you recall, since we're doing our Zoom meeting under the new Sunshine Law, if anybody has somebody in the area with you and you need to make that announcement, would you do so along with your introduction?
Thank you.
And if there's nobody around, you're good.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. So if you'd introduce yourselves, and if there's anybody around you, if you would also mention it. So Matthew, we'll start with you.
Aloha, Chair. Matthew Clark. There's no one around with me at this time. Thank you.
All right. And then we have Kilo Hirano.
Good morning, Kilohana Hirano, also by myself this morning.
Thank you. Is Kule on? Not yet. What about Nicole? Oh, Kule, you here?
Yep. Aloha pumehana kako o vavo ku'ulei kekealani. Today I have my 11-year-old daughter with me and my daughter's partner at home as well. And good to see you all. Mahalo.
You too. Thank you. Nicole, Louis.
Not in attendance.
Okay, I'll move to Scott Mahoney.
Yeah, aloha, Scott Mahoney. I'm by myself.
All right. Thank you, Scott. And then Aaron Spellman. I thought I saw him.
Hi, good morning, Chair.
Hi, good morning.
Hi, good morning. My name is Aaron Spielman. My wife, Brinley, might be walking around in the background. She runs my office, and there's some dogs cruising around. That's it.
Okay, thank you. And we do have a new member of the commission, but he's not present today. His name is Kealoha Nui Opuna Kini. So we're going to move now on the agenda to the business of the commission. And our first item is the National Historic Preservation Act, Section 106, Programmatic Agreement Initiation of Consultation for Hawaii Historic Bridge Minor Projects. A brief background: the federal and state Department of Transportation and their consultants, Consor, Mason, Hunter Research, and Honua Consulting, have requested the review and comments from the Cultural Resources Commission on the subject programmatic agreement concerning ongoing maintenance, repair, and minor rehab of historic bridges. The consultants will give a presentation with an opportunity for commissioners to ask questions and discuss initial comments and follow-up actions. Representing the consultants this morning are Ikaika Kincaid, Pua Ayu, and Barbara Scheidler. So, Ikaika,
one moment, Chair.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Ikaika, hold on one moment. I think we didn't introduce Natalie, so.
Natalie, did I miss you? Sorry.
It's okay. Aloha.
I missed my vice chair.
No worries. Aloha kako, Natalie Kurishima, and I'm also by myself.
All right. Thank you, Kamu. Ikaika, are you on?
Oh, okay, I guess I'm on. Aloha, everybody. Ikaika Kincaid here with Consor Engineers. I'll be presenting our project for you guys today. Let me get my screen shared here. All right, does everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Just make this big as well. Okay, yeah. Yep, aloha everybody. Oi kaika ko inoa. No oahu mai au, no noho iki manawa papakolea. So yep, Ikaika Kincaid from Oahu. I live in Papakolea now. Be presenting this project to you guys, along with Barbara Scheidler. She's down at the bottom or on my screen, anyways. Barbara, you wanna say hi?
Aloha, Barbara Scheidler with Mason Architects. I'm a historical architect. So that's my involvement in the project.
And then we also have, we also have Pua Ayu. Her camera is not working, but Pua, you wanna say hello?
Aloha, wau Pua Ayu. Noho wau ma palolo.
So Pua is our Hawaii Department of Transportation project manager for this project, and Barbara and I are on the consultant team here. So moving on to our slides. So the lead agency is actually Federal Highway Administration, and it's a partnership between HDOT and then the consultant teams, as mentioned before, is myself with Consor, along with several others, Barbara Scheidler over at Mason with Caroline. Then we also have Hunter Research Inc., Patrick Harshbarger. He's a architectural historian. He's actually written several historic bridge programmatic agreements for other states. So we have him on our team as a specialist for that. And then some of you may know Tricia Keholani Watson. She's with Honua Consulting. So she is also on our team as well. So this is a presentation we gave to a public meeting, two NHO public meetings in February. So we're just going to go ahead and utilize this one so you guys can kind of see what we already presented to the public. This is some of our housekeeping rules, which kind of don't really affect us for this meeting here. So I'll move on to the next slide. This is our agenda for the project here. So we'll briefly talk about our consultation efforts to date, the purpose and goal of this programmatic agreement, the scope of the agreement. We'll review some of the documents that have been submitted to you folks, which we would like you guys to review and comment on. We'll I'll bring up some brief images of the documents and I'll explain a little bit about it. So it'll give you a head start when you get into the documents to review, so you guys can have a better idea of what you guys are looking at. And then some of the consultation protocols. Again, a lot of this was for our NHL meeting on various individuals on how to upload their comments to our SharePoint site and so on and so forth. Okay, so the consultation effort so far, this project kicked off back in February 2020. As you know, we had COVID, and then we kind of limped along doing some various meetings with the State Shifty Office, the FHWA, Historic Hawaii Foundation from March to August. We didn't really get into meeting with some of the state and county engineers until September, December, end of the year, 2020. And then we kind of formal initiation of consultation went out to our NHOs in January. Oops, did it go black? Oops. Uh-oh. 1 second here. Sorry, it seemed to have gone.
The screen looks okay to us, though.
You guys can see it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same slide.
Okay. Let me, how about, oh, no, it probably took it away, huh?
You just need to go full screen.
Okay, hold on. Sorry about this technical difficulties here. Uh-oh. Oh boy. So on my side, my monitor went black, so I can't see anything on the screen.
Oh no.
Yeah, I know, right?
Okay, I'll tell you when. Well, do you have a PowerPoint of a copy of the presentation?
I have it. Yeah, I mean, I have it on another monitor, but I can't get out of the monitor sharing mode right now.
So how about I narrate Ikaika and you just hit next slide when you can, when I call for it. Shall we do it that way until your screen comes back?
What's going on here? I apologize. Should have put it on.
Can you try press like the escape button? Maybe that'll exit it for you. Oh. Yeah, it did exit it, but now I just see your screen, which you can't see.
Which I can't see. I can't see my screen.
Yeah. What about if you press like the power, like, you know, the monitor power button on and
Yeah,
off?
I just did that.
Oh.
I know.
I can, Barbara and Ikaika, it's up to you folks, but I did get a PDF copy of your folks' presentation. And if you want, but I'll give you some time to remedy on your side, but it's just another option that I can share while you guys narrate.
Great.
Shall we try that?
Yeah, I
Sure,
think
yeah.
you should let him do that and narrate off of his screen.
Yes, so I can't even disconnect my screen from sharing.
Perhaps the county can take it back from you.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm working on pulling up the PDF. Couple minutes.
Yeah, I can just.
Yeah, can you?
Ikaika, can you see us in the Zoom meeting now?
Yeah.
Okay,
I didn't lose any of you guys. I just lost my screen.
So if Kamuela pulls it up, you should be able to narrate from his shared screen. Does that work for you?
Yeah. That'll be fine.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, yeah, so I got the consultation effort page back up again. All right, so looks good. All right, so our initial consultation went out in December. We had a public, our first public meeting was in January 2021. And then since January 21 until September of 2021, we started developing the documents that we've submitted to you folks. And we finally submitted, which we're calling our second draft PA to SHPE in September 2021. And so now we're going back out and meeting with everybody to present this second draft of the PA. Yeah, go ahead, next slide. So the purpose, which really hasn't changed since we started back in February 2020, the purpose is still to ensure safe public transportation. We want to undertake minor projects that have no adverse effects on historic bridges. We want to efficiently deliver federally funded maintenance projects at the state and local level, and mainly streamline implementation review and reporting for minor historic bridge projects that have no adverse effect on historic properties. And then also we want to encourage adoption of best treatment practices for historic bridges and material types. Next slide. So the main things this PA will address, these are our green light items, is the ongoing maintenance, repair, and minor rehabilitation of historic bridges. Specifically the federal regulations, section 106 of the NHPA, National Historic Preservation Act, and the implementation regulations in 36 CFR Part 800. Now, we can't specifically include 6E, the state regulation 6E, in the language of the programmatic agreement, but we are working to try and create a separate but parallel regulatory process, which would be in the appendix. So we still need to work out that. The first thing we try to work out is the section 106 portion, and then we're going to try and work on the 6E side as well. Next slide. So the main things that the PA will not apply to is major bridge rehabilitation or replacement. So you can't replace a bridge under this programmatic agreement, or really even widen it, change the footprint. That wouldn't be allowed. And then the other thing is projects with an effect to archaeological resources. Yeah, so making sure we do not affect those archaeological resources. Yeah, next slide. Okay, now we're going to start getting into the documents that have been provided to you guys. And one of those documents is our introduction. So we arranged this PowerPoint kind of like the best way to introduce the whole project to you guys. So part of our best practices manual, we're introducing our concept of tiered activities. So we have basically 3 tier levels. You could consider the 4th one, which would be not included, but tier 1 is an activity that may proceed. A tier 2 is an activity requiring the application of our guidance, the guidance in our best practices manual to achieve an outcome of having no adverse effect. And then tier 3 is an activity requiring application of the guidance in the best practices manual and review by a qualified professional to achieve an outcome of having no adverse effect. So it kind of increases in the severity of the activity. Now, the qualified professional in tier 3, that would be a SOI qualified person, Secretary of the Interior qualified person, to make the assessment of that activity that it matches or meets the intent and guidance in our best practices manual, and of course does not have an adverse effect on the structure or the bridge. Now, we also have kind of like our fourth tier, which is basically not included, and those would be activities requiring additional approval and not covered by the historic bridge minor projects PA. So, and you guys will see some good examples of this if, as we get through this presentation. Go ahead, next slide. These chapters that we're going to present here are chapters in the best practices manual, which is going to be attached with the programmatic agreement. We have 6 chapters in total. Our first one is what we're calling the Environs, and you can see we have 4 subtitles there: vegetation removal, waterways and scour protection, lay down yards if one is needed for the project site, and then utility maintenance. And what we've done is provided some images of what some of these activities in each one of the tiers would look like. So the top photo on the right, we have a bridge on Kauai. This bridge had a flood and a bunch of debris came down and it plugged up the waterway opening there. So this would be classified as debris removal. It would be a tier 1 activity. Go ahead and proceed with the removal of that timber debris. Follow guidance in our management best practices manual. The photo below, where we have some scour along the abutments. So if you needed to do some micropile installation or scour protection, this would be considered a tier 1 activity. Go ahead and do go ahead and proceed with the work. Now, let me just kind of mention here before I go further is this programmatic agreement that we're preparing for these various activities that we want to do to historic bridges. This actually is the 106 consultation for this project. So once all these activities are approved and instituted within the programmatic agreement, they wouldn't come up for review again in the future. So you guys wouldn't be able to see a project where, we had to go and install these micropiles under this abutment, this scoured abutment. It would basically, the work would proceed. So I'll just keep in mind as you're reviewing these activities, these are activities that we anticipate that have no adverse effect on a structure or the historic, the historic bridge or the archaeological resources, right? So just kind of keep it out. I didn't really mention it earlier, but I think it's important that this is actually the 106 consultation for all of these activities. Right. Let's go to the next slide. Chapter 2 is our bridge structure, and this is kind of our biggest chapter. It kind of dives into the various material types. So, we have temporary structure section, stone masonry, concrete, steel, wood. Then we also have expansion joints in here. In our examples on the right, we have a stone masonry repair. So it's a CRM wall or a stone abutment wall. And at the bottom, you can see that there's some missing stones, some missing aggregate, undermining. So to go in and fix that undermining and kind of replace those stones there, that would be considered a tier 2 activity. Follow the guidance in the manual and you should be okay to proceed. Now the photo below where we have a steel steel bracing member for one of the steel tower bridges on the Big Island. We got some big holes in the member that member would need to be replaced. So if we do a member replacement in kind, this would be considered a tier 3 activity and would require a Secretary of the Interior to review the activity, the specifics in the repair plans, and they would have to sign off that it does not have an adverse effect on the structure. Okay, moving on. Chapter 3 is our roadway chapter. There's four headings in here. We have roadway surface and wearing surface, railings and parapets, sidewalks, and then traffic control. Our examples on the right, we have a wearing surface and paving where, there's some potholes that need to be repaired. That would be considered a tier 2 activity. The photo below is kind of 2 elements in here. We have 2 different tier levels in regards to this repair. The first one where we have to fix the spalls in the concrete guardrail, which is a decorative guardrail. That would be a tier 3 activity, which we would need an SOI qualified person to sign off on those repairs. And then the steel W-beam approach guardrail that's attached to the concrete, that would be a tier 2 activity for guardrails. And it would need to be replaced in kind. You can't attach like something unique or elaborate that's different than what's already existing there. So sometimes you might, different, if you're doing a whole project on one bridge, you might have various tier activities depending on the material type and the element that you're repairing. Okay, next slide. Chapter 4 is our testing chapter. We wanted to have something in there because, we have these bridges are old. We need to verify if they're still, have good material content. They're still structurally sound. So sometimes we have to go do testing. Again, there's 5 subheadings here. One is our site, in situ material strength analysis, material sampling and testing, masonry testing, and then structural steel testing. So some examples on the right, the top one where we have a gentleman taking a concrete core sample in the deck. That would be a tier 2, level. And then below for geotechnical borings, this would be considered a tier 1 activity. And there's some caveats that are associated with geotechnical boring, and we'll get into that in a couple of slides down the road. Next slide. Chapter 5 is finishes. So three sections here: cleaning and paint removal, paint and coatings, and then veneer repair. The top photograph example, again, we have 2 tier levels here. The concrete spall repair is considered a tier 3 level because if you look a little closer, you can see like there's an orange peel texture to the concrete, the inset concrete on this bridge railing, where there's cracking and it's delaminating, starting to spall off. So that concrete spall repair is classified tier 3, where we need a SOI qualified person to review that activity and those specifications. And then for the paint and coating, that would be a tier 1 activity. Yeah, basically match the color and sheen of the existing paint that's there. Down below, graffiti removal would be a tier 2 activity. The reason it's a tier 2 activity is, a lot of our older bridges, if they get graffiti on it, we want to make sure that you're not using a high pressure water blaster or some kind of solvents that could do more harm to the structure. So So we want to provide guidance on how to do that, how to remove paint. You know, and so that would be a tier 2 activity. Okay, next slide. And then our last chapter that we have right now is kind of a catch-all. It's chapter 6, miscellaneous. And right now we just have two sections. One is lighting and then one is signage. And then some examples that we have, you know, navigation lights top right. There's a broken light on the side of this bridge. That's a tier 1 activity. Basically go and repair it, fix it in kind. Right below that, we have freestanding signage. This is a tier 1. Again, there's some caveats associated with this, which we'll get into. But you know, when you have to install a load boosting sign or the hazard markers, which are away from the bridge, you can go ahead and do it as a tier 1, but you need to follow some additional guidance in there. So signs that are associated with the bridge would be allowed within this PA. And then our third photograph is our conduit repairs. We obviously have a broken conduit here. That's a tier 1 activity. Go ahead and proceed with the activity and repair the conduit. So, all right, next slide. So this is our summary matrix. Okay, so this is an Excel document that we provided to you guys, and in the Excel document, there's 6 tabs along the bottom, each for one of the chapters that I just explained to you. And it looks like this. It's, you know, you have the different tier levels across the top, and then along the left-hand side, all the activities for each one of those chapters that we just shared with you. And it goes through, it's just a brief one or two sentences of what the activity is, what would be allowed for each one of those tier levels. So it doesn't go into full detail. This is really just a summary. And this is kind of the big thing that we need you guys to really take a close look at, because this is what we're going to carry forward in the programmatic agreement. All these activities are what we're proposing to be approved by SHPD, by you guys, you know, by all the stakeholders here. And again, we haven't fleshed out the full details of all these. That's what we want to do once we get, you know, like a green light. Some of these might be green light. Some of them might be yellow light, where we need to discuss it a little bit more. And then some of them might be red light, where, you know, somebody thinks, no way, you can't do it, it shouldn't be included. But we want to, the green light ones we want to move forward with and start developing more detailed guidance for our best practices manual. Because right now, the only thing we've prepared, you know, further is our chapter 3, which we provided a sample chapter 3 for Roadway. We went a little bit further in that chapter so you can kind of see what the guidance manual would look like. But you know, this sample, a couple of sentences listed in each one of these tiers, is what we need you guys to kind of look closely at. And so we can look at a couple in detail here. So let's just pick, I guess, steel grid. So if we look at the steel grid, so under the tier 1 activity, yeah, we'd have a welded repair of fatigue cracks in existing grid, replacement of existing grid to match existing. So since you guys are on the Big Island, you guys are familiar with the Singing Bridge over there in Hilo, which we do have an example of that bridge deck up on the top right photograph there. So see where we have some of those missing diagonal pieces in there? That's a tier 1 activity. Go ahead, weld those pieces back in. You know, go ahead and proceed with the activity. Now, you notice in tier 2 that there are no activities applied to a tier 2. Okay, so now we move to a tier 3. So tier 3 activity would be modification to existing or replacement of existing wearing surface to enhance performance, replacement of existing wearing surface with a completely different material or design. So if you know, you couldn't, if you wanted to go and put a different grid, a steel grid over there, that would need to be reviewed by an SOI qualified person to make that determination. You know, and then you wouldn't really be able to replace this with a concrete deck. That just wouldn't happen, right? So that wouldn't be allowed. That would be a significant alteration. That'd be an adverse effect, and so that would be out. So if you look in that fourth column, all activities judged in Tier 3 by SOI qualified professional to have potential for adverse effect would not be included in the programmatic agreement. I think the photo below is also another bridge on the Big Island. I think it's over in the Hamakua side over there. I'm not sure exactly which bridge it is, but it's a timber wood deck bridge. So if we needed to replace some of those rotten deck planks, that would be a Tier 1 activity. You know, go ahead and proceed with that. Yeah. So I guess I think this might be a good point. I can get open it up to some questions, some brief questions. We do have a lot more to go through, but I think this could be a good part to maybe take a pause and see if you guys have any questions. Might have to come off of mute if you want to.
Oh, Jerry, you muted, Jerry.
Thank you, Ikaika. At this time, we have Commissioner Louie on with us. If she could introduce herself and just say if there's any one in the room with her. Nicole? Okay, she's supposed to be on, but let's go back. Ikaika, I know at this point he's asking for any questions from the commission in regards to the project.
I have a question, Chair.
Sure.
So I'm curious about, do you address in the PA the types of tools that be used? For instance, you know, if you're clearing vegetation from under a bridge, there would be more potential to impact if you're using an excavator rather than hand tools. I don't know if that's addressed at all.
We yeah, so that's kind of along the same lines as BMPs that could be used, you know. So there are some documentation out there that's already specific to doing some of those activities, and we need to look and see if we can reference those manuals, best practices manuals for removing vegetation in the stream. We are, you know, the Army Corps is a consultant on this, or a signatory to this document, so they are going to have, they're going to be looking closely at that as well. So yeah, that's something that we're going to look at. Yeah.
Thank you.
Ikaika, this is Jerry. Do you have a list of projects by island, particularly for our island, Hawaii?
No, nothing like that at this point. Because so this is a weird, a different type of consultation effort. So there isn't a project associated location right now. This is going to be, it's a statewide programmatic agreement. So all these activities that I'm mentioning to you, if the Wailuku Bridge had, if the state wanted to go and repair some of that deck members, and those activities did not have a potential for effect, they fall within the programmatic agreement, then the DOT can go ahead and proceed with that document without coming out for formal consultation.
Right. Okay.
So this is a streamlining process to avoid going to Shifty to get approval to do some of these activities.
Right, for every project or, yeah. And what about funding? The initial funding has been for a consultation, I'm assuming, because it seems to me that it's such a huge project that
Yeah.
at some point when the details are fleshed out, then funding will be available.
So you know, obviously everybody's familiar with the infrastructure bill that got passed. There's going to be a lot of funding coming in, a lot of federal funding coming in. So the goal of this programmatic agreement is to allow state and the county level to use the federal funds to maintain a lot of these older historic bridges. Now, again, you know, they can't use the funds under this PA to replace the bridge or to significantly alter it, but you know, you can do cleaning, you can do paving, repaving, spall repair. You know, there might be some scour mitigation that needs to be done. You know, so it's maintenance that is certainly over, you know, that needs to be done and hasn't been done potentially for a long time, that would allow our state and county folks to go and do that work.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that most of the funding is coming from that infrastructure bill that Congress passed. Okay.
Yeah, so this is a 106 project.
The process, yeah.
That would be the trigger, right? So so if there's federal funding, then it would trigger. We don't know how it's going to affect if it's just state or county funds.
Right.
You know, like I mentioned, we do want to try and have a parallel 6E process that mimics our 106. But we don't know how that's going to look yet. We still got to have those consultation efforts and talks and see how that's going to play out. So
okay, cool. Any other questions? I see Barbara has a comment.
I just wanted to add onto that. You know, this is the consultation for this and any of this proposed work. If this PA is successful and is implemented in Shifty and all the signatories sign it, you'll never see these projects. They won't come before you again at all. You won't know this. So the idea is to get these off your, you know, off your plate and off Shifty's plate so that the money can go toward the actual project rather than on administrative costs or consultation, small project by project.
Right.
So there, we'll get into it at the end. We'll have a discussion on how these get cataloged and reported. We do have a reporting mechanism that we're developing. It's going to be twice a year for the first year and then probably shift to annually. So you could request being copied on reports of work that happen in Hawaii County, for instance. I think that would be within your right. You'd have to talk to Pua. Pua would like to speak as well. But, you know, there's accountability built into this, even if we are streamlining the process.
Thanks, Barbara. Pua, you have a comment?
So I just wanted to say that for the most part, these types of projects did not come before you before because they were state funded and they're very small projects. And so there's actually an existing MOA with Shifty that allows these projects to go forward. And so this is different in that you get to do a consultation on these small maintenance projects before we do them. And then there's accountability like Barbara talked about afterwards. But I think something that people miss sometimes is that these are projects that had not been consulted on before because they were so small. So, so now you're getting a chance to consult. Thank you.
I see Com who has his hand raised.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Ikaika, I just wanted, you use this SOI professional, you might have mentioned it, but I missed it. So what does SOI stand for?
Secretary of the Interior. So
okay,
that's,
so for certain projects, if it's in a certain tier and could have potential effects, somebody from the interior will review.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody that's qualified. Yeah, that's qualified as a Secretary of the Interior person, right? And I get Barbara. I know she wants to elaborate on that a little bit.
But let Pua, I think she wants to.
Oh no, Either one of us. It's not someone, it's the Secretary of Interior's guidelines. So there are people, for example, Barbara is qualified as an historic architect or architectural historian, one of those.
Historic architect.
Historic architect. Other people in SHPD, for example, are qualified as archaeologists. So it's not somebody from the interior. What we would have to do is have a consultant or someone that HDOT hired who met those qualifications, and they would review the project.
Right. Any other comments or questions, commissioners?
Aaron?
Aaron?
Hi, Chair. Hi, Kaika. Hi, everybody. So I had two questions that I jotted down. One was, is there any cost impact on this project that would affect the tiers? Like maybe painting work is less expensive than spall repair. Mm-hmm. And is there an aggregate amount that then changes that tier level? In construction and architecture, we're dealing with this all the time. I don't know if you guys have to do this in bridges.
Let me think. Let me see if I got your question correctly. So you're asking if the different tier levels have a commensurate construction rate associated with them,
or if there's like a limit, like you can't spend more than say 50% of the bridge replacement value. That's the number we're up against in architecture. Is there a limit like that in the tiers that you've assigned where $1 million scope would automatically fall into a higher tier with SOI review?
No, we don't have any of those limits now. But that's an interesting point because we haven't really identified what's the difference between a minor project and a major project. And I guess maybe Pua, you have some thoughts on there?
Right now, the way it's set up is by materials and what you're doing. So theoretically, you could do a whole bunch of stuff and maybe come up to $1 million. And each of those individual things are too small to trigger anything. But I think the question you're asking is from a historic preservation standpoint is if you do so many projects and meet a dollar level, for example, overall, looking at all of those projects, would it have an impact to the integrity and the character of the bridge? So I think that's the question. And that's a really great question. I don't think we've asked ourselves that question. So we will. And right now at this moment, we don't have an answer for you, but thank you for asking that.
I think you had that, what you just said, Pua, was that was the interest part. Like, is there a limit or not? And you could replace every single member on the bridge and meet all of these tiers, let's say, for example, right, and still be approved. But it kind of leads into my second question. Sorry, one more jump in here, Chair.
That's fine.
If it doesn't meet the tiers that we're kind of looking at now in this consult, does it come back? Or is that like, then it always goes to SOI and we literally never see anything again?
Yeah, so if it doesn't qualify under this programmatic agreement, if it doesn't fit into tiers 1, 2, or 3, then that project would get booted and it would go back out and follow the normal 106 consultation process.
Like, let's say a new bridge for whatever. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. And even if that same thing, if the SOI qualified person, like you mentioned, replacing all of those beams, right? So if the SOI qualified person says, oh no, this would be too much, this is too much, this is going to affect the structure, they would kick it out and then it would follow the normal 106 process. Yeah. Yeah.
Any other questions? Matt.
Sorry, I just have one more question.
No,
I noticed
okay.
in reading through the before this meeting, this applies only to the bridges listed in the historic bridge inventory. Is that correct? And it says as part of the PA that'll be updated every once in a while. I wonder if you could talk to me about updating the historic bridge inventory and how that will work.
Yeah, good question. Yeah, we are working off of the 20. Well, we mentioned historic bridge list. We don't actually specifically name the bridge list, but it really is the 2013 historic bridge inventory that was done. Now that all those bridges in that, or all the bridges in our state are going to get updated, there is a new inventory that's going to be done within the next couple of years. And then, so that would be our new list of bridges, right? And so it's kind of really a starting point for us. So in that list, you know, there's high significant importance, there's eligible, there's not eligible, there's a whole slew of them. So that's kind of the starting point for when HDOT project managers look at the activities that they want to do on their bridge. So they would go there first and determine what the status is of the bridge. And then they would utilize the programmatic agreement to address any of their repair activities to help streamline that process. And then if it has an effect on the bridge, then it gets booted and then goes through the whole 106 process, the full 106 process. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and is there going to be, you know, how often will the list be updated? It's just, it'll be every, I guess we're approaching 10 years already, but as someone who uses it a lot, I'm just curious.
Yeah, a lot of states, they'll update it 10 to 15 years is what we've been finding out. That's kind of the normal update range, 10 to 15 years. But we want to, like I said, it's just the starting point at this point, you know, so you can use the list to determine if your bridge has a high significance, historic significance, or if it's eligible, or if it's not, for whatever reason, it may have been determined it's not eligible, you know. Barbara, yeah.
Yeah, I also want to add, if there's a bridge that's more than 50 years old that's not on the list, and the project manager at HDOT wants to apply this PA, they certainly could do a determination of eligibility and get it declared historic by SHPD. And even though it's not in the inventory, if it has an official declaration of you know, historic status, then the PA could apply. So there's a mechanism for those that are, we don't want them to fall through the cracks, you know, the ones that may not be listed, but have the potential to be historic. They just have to go through that identification process and have the determination made.
Thanks, Barbara. Any other questions, commissioners or staff?
We have a lot more to share with you, so
yeah, we do have
a couple. Want to get back in the saddle?
Yeah, a couple more critical things we do want to present to you folks.
Okay, that's fine. Do you want to do that now? Or?
Yeah. I'm sorry. Can you guys bring the PowerPoint back up again? Yeah. Maybe don't see the PowerPoint.
Kaika, I can see it.
Yeah, we can see it.
Showing the rest of us.
Why am I not? What is going on?
He's on the slide with
okay.
the sample
there
chapter.
Okay. Okay. Good. Okay. All right. So yeah. So the next slide here, after the summary matrix. Actually, maybe go back to that one, Kamuela, real quick. Yeah. Okay. So this is just a little snippet of that Excel file, which has all of those various tier activities for each one of the, the activities listed that we're working to try and get, or we're proposing to get into the programmatic agreement. So those, just again, those are the ones that, those activities are the ones we want you guys to kind of take a close look at. All right, next slide. And then just so you guys can kind of see what the gist is of our best practices manual, we did prepare one chapter, the full chapter, and it's Roadway chapter 3. So you guys can take a look at that chapter as a sample. And then just in general, we have for each one of these sections, we have an intent section. So the intent of the repair, principles of the repair, and then we go into the material, how to repair the material type, and then each one of the tier activities has more explanation of what to do. Now, we'd also, we do want to make sure we get some good photos in here and some sketches that'll help the reader better understand, what's involved with each one of them. Yeah. All right, next slide. Next slide is just basically the table of contents for the actual language in the programmatic agreement. So you can see we have 20 sections that are in there. I'm sure you guys are going to take a close look at that. And then another example on the right, we have a spall repair. And this is actually a picture looking up underneath the deck. It's between two beams. So this repair of this spall repair would be a tier one activity because it's under the bridge. Nobody can really see it. It's out of view. Go ahead and repair it. Next slide. Okay, buffer zone concept. All right, so this is another big thing that we're presenting or trying to get into the programmatic agreement, this buffer zone concept. This slide basically shows the 4 chapters where this concept is going to be utilized. So the buffer zone concept basically is our way of mitigating excavation type activities that might be required to repair some of the substructure of the foundation units. So chapter 1, we have it in the environs, so the waterway and scour protection. So if we're dealing with like stream diversion, channel lining and scour protection, micropile installations, we would utilize this buffer zone concept. In the bridge structure, laydown areas, utility maintenance and underground utilities, also temporary structures. For testing, site disturbance and geotechnical boring, right? So when that picture of those guys drilling in the stream right adjacent to the bridge, they would be utilizing this buffer zone concept. And then same thing with miscellaneous, we have freestanding signage and signage and graphics. So just the blue box on the right, these stipulations were pulled directly from the language in the programmatic agreement. And so for number 1, ground disturbing activities for qualifying minor projects, including scour countermeasures and foundation repairs, may take place within a strict 10-foot buffer zone as measured from the edge of the structure, the superstructure and substructure of the existing historic bridge, right? So you can go ahead and excavate as long as you stay within this 10-foot buffer zone to do those repairs. And actually, can you advance to the next slide? Just kind of give you a visual. So here's a little visual representation of kind of what we're talking about. Obviously, it's not to scale, but if you can envision, this buffer zone, that red clouded area around each one of those units is where excavation would be allowed to be occurred. Disturbance of the ground material would be allowed in that area. And the reason we picked the 10-foot buffer zone is when the bridge was originally constructed, they had to disturb that approximately about that much of material to install the bridge. there. So it's already been previously disturbed. And we think 10 feet is a reasonable amount for construction activities to occur. You know, so if we have to install micropiles or some kind of scour protection there, that would be sufficient space for the contractor to work and do his work there. Okay, let's go back to the previous slide. Okay, stipulation number 2, blue box, driven poles for signage, guardrails, and other types of roadside appurtenances are allowed within the right of way and outside of the 10-foot buffer zone. So if we have to put a load posting sign away from the bridge, as long as they are maximum 4-inch diameter and to be driven no more than the depth of 36 inches below existing ground surfaces. So, you know, they can install a sign as long as they're driving the post into the ground no more than 36 inches deep and no bigger than 4 inches diameter. So you couldn't like excavate and pour, you know, dig a hole and then pour concrete in the hole and put the post. That wouldn't be allowed under this programmatic agreement. Stipulation 3 is dealing with the laydown yards. So laydown yards for qualifying historic bridge minor projects must be on existing paved areas or unpaved areas protected with a matting, right? So they gotta place a matting down if they want to use that area to store equipment or materials or what have you. All right, let's go to the next slide. So yeah, actually go back to show some examples on the, so we have some photo examples here. Top one where we have a wall. It's a stream diversion. It's like an extended wing wall. It's obviously falling down. It's gotten undermined, and there's some major issues there. So that would be a tier 1 activity to go ahead and repair that wall. And then similarly in the one below, you can see it was a kind of like a grouted riprap channel lining there that's got the undermining issues. So go ahead, and that's a tier 1 activity. Go ahead and fix that as long as you stay within the 10-foot buffer zone. Yeah, as previously established. Okay, next slide. Okay, this is kind of the wrapping up the list, the review of the documents. So the list of attachments that will be included in the PA, the first one is the historic bridgelets, which Matt was asking about. So that is currently the 2013 State of Hawaii Historic Bridge Inventory. So that'll be included. We are also going to include the Excel file, the tiered activity matrix summary. That's going to be included. The best practices manual, that is going to be a document. We haven't developed all the chapters yet, right? We need to get green light, yellow, red light on all of those activities before we develop that whole chapter, because that's going to be a heavy or substantial effort to get that best practices manual developed. But right now, we have provided a sample chapter for you guys to look at to kind of see what was involved in that. So that's chapter 3, roadway. We also included is going to be, well, it will be included, it's the certification and compliance forms. We have not done it. We have not developed these at all yet. We do have some thoughts on how it should look, but because we need to consult with Army Corps, SHPD, we don't know exactly what's needed. You know, who needs to sign off, what information needs to be provided. So we still need to consult and figure out how we're going to do the compliance and certification forms, but that will be considered, that will be included in the attachments. And then obviously our consulting party list will be attached, as well as a letter of understanding between SHPD and Hawaii DOT. Yeah. All right, next slide. Okay, this is just, I put this up here because I wanted to kind of let everybody know how we develop the activities. So the general concepts behind these minor repairs are basically all repairs, or repairs are categorized by material type rather than bridge element. So most repairs, they typically follow the same procedures regardless of the element being repaired or the location of the repair, right? So if you have a concrete pier, a concrete beam, a concrete railing, you basically repair a spall or delamination the same method, regardless of where it's located. Same thing with steel, stone masonry, and wood. The repair methods are all the same. So we figured we could get more bang for our buck if we addressed material defects as opposed to bridge element defects, right? So when we say a bridge element, that would be what we have listed below each one. So for concrete, that would be a concrete beam, the girders, the diaphragms, the abutments, wing walls, all of those things, those are actually all classified as bridge elements, right? They're all concrete materials and they're in different places on the bridge. So, you know, doing a concrete spall repair would be the same, whether it's, you know, on the wall or on the beam or on the deck, on the railing. So that's kind of what is explained in this slide here, and how we approached each one of these activities and these repairs. All right, next slide. This is a list of our consulting parties, signatories, and consulting parties. So our signatories are FHWA, SHPD, ACHP. Then we also have the Army Corps and Hawaii Department of Transportation. And then consulting parties, which are potential signatories, will be the counties, as well as the review commissions, and you folks would be included here as well. And then obviously the consulting parties, which are non-signatories, will be some of the NHOs and stuff like that. Next slide. Okay, yeah. This is a very important piece for you folks. So we provided an Excel comment sheet. So what we want you folks to do is, if you could provide all your comments, you can consolidate all of your guys' comments onto this Excel spreadsheet, and then help us resolve any conflicting comments. You get. So this document will help us resolve if you folks have conflicting comments, like if Matt has a comment and Jerry has a conflicting comment, maybe just make sure you guys resolve those comments and then provide us with a consolidated list of everybody's comments within this one document.
Ikaika, the comments presented today by Matt and Aaron, for instance, do you want those listed on this form?
Yeah,
or are you already taking those into consideration?
That would be fantastic if we could have it written documentation, okay. Because part of our process is the administrative record that we have to keep as part of this project. So yeah, if we could have it written and cataloged, that would be yeah, fantastic.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Barbara, yeah, go ahead.
Just earlier in when we were coordinating this meeting with the Hawaii County Planning, Kamuela mentioned that probably all the comments would go to his office in whatever normal format you normally do, written, you know, if you need to do it in Word or whatever. And I think maybe the planning department would be the one that's responsible for organizing them and providing them to us in a single sheet. Is that correct? Is that the way that you would handle that?
Sure. And commissioners, any comments that you have, if you could shoot an email off to Kamuela, and he can put all of those together as one document and send it over to Kaika.
You guys hear me? You guys can hear?
Oh, yeah, better. It's better now, yeah.
We got some issues with our microphone over here. Can you guys hear? Sorry. Okay.
Yes.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm still gonna have to think about what is the best way to get everybody's comments back to you guys, especially because you know, it's an official response from the commission. And what we usually do is we compile their comments into a letter. Yeah. So there's two thoughts. We can make a word table in the letter and try and keep the table format that you guys provided. Or maybe this is a question for Jean. I don't know if we've ever done where there's an official letter that references a digital file, like an Excel sheet.
I think that would be fine if you did a cover letter that then refers to an Excel spreadsheet as an enclosure or attachment. I'm sure that would be fine if that's simpler for formatting purposes for everybody.
Okay, so yeah, we'll try. I think the challenge for us, for the commission is, you know, after, I think we might have sent out that Excel sheet to everybody, and maybe chair or vice chair can let me know if I didn't, but I think we did. So it's to try and get your comments into that format. And then I think one of the hardest things that's going to happen for us, for me, is to read through everybody's comments and see which ones conflict. And then we got to have another conversation to see how we can make it. But Ikaika, let me ask you this. Sorry, April, I'll hand it off to you in a little bit. But what if each commissioner, what if we didn't resolve it, but each commissioner had their own Excel sheet, and we just handed it over as a package? And that way we're not trying to eliminate somebody's voice, but it's for the consultants to hear the varying opinions.
I think we need one document from the CRC. If there's conflicting comments within it, maybe you can highlight them or something, but I think we shouldn't receive multiple forms. It should be one response. You know, because we're consulting with you as an aggregate entity. As far as, you know, one thing that could happen as far as conflicting comments is you could have us back to a meeting and we could actually discuss those with you at a future time. There may not be any conflicts, but if there are, we could help guide some discussion or provide more information that might help resolve those.
Yeah. And what usually happens is, you know, the whole commission gets a chance to review the document that's going out, and then they vote to approve it. So yeah, just to let you guys know, I guess everybody, the consultants and also the commission, is that, you know, there's going to be some back and forth, and I'll do my best to summarize. And then, yeah, we'll work it out. We'll work it out.
I think that was my question, is how will the commission vote? How will the commission vote on what is going to agree to go out? That was my question. And Jean, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, really. So we're bound by the Sunshine Law, right? And so I think probably it's a slightly frustratingly long process. So my sort of initial thought is, to the extent that it works, is maybe each of the commissioners send your comments to Kamuela And then Kamuela, you or whoever it is at planning, with my assistance, if you'd like it, we can put together a draft comment table. And then that draft comment table would be presented to all of the commissioners at a commission meeting, right? So because it's got to be sunshine, right?
Yeah.
So that draft can be discussed at the meeting. And Ikaika and Barbara and Pua, you guys, obviously it's a public meeting, you guys could come back. And so you guys would see the draft, you would see it as a draft. The commissioners could, everybody could discuss it, put together a revised letter if necessary, seek clarification if that's needed and whatnot. And then eventually, through the whole process, eventually there would be a commission vote on a draft that can go out.
Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, so the next commission meeting is May.
Right.
And so commissioners, I would probably ask you to get your comments into me by mid, or of course, as early as possible, but by mid April. And then we can have a draft letter ready. Jean, let me ask you this. If I create a draft and send it to each of the commissioners as individuals, asking them to respond to me, just to me directly, is that a violation of sunshine law?
No, you can have a discussion one-on-one with each commissioner. But what we can't do, what we need to avoid is the commission having a discussion outside of a meeting or a serial communication. So you couldn't act sort of as a go-between. Oh, so and Jerry gave me this comment, and now I want to hand it on to Matthew, and so the serial thing we got to be careful of. But yeah, you can certainly have a one-on-one conversation with each of the commissioners. So like say Aaron sent you a comment, you had a question, the two of you can discuss that freely, and then put something together. And so you could circulate a draft. You could certainly send the draft out, and I guess, yeah, I'm going to have to look at the whole draft a little more carefully, and just how much back and forth would be permissible under sunshine. I think that is where we get a little sticky, is we want to avoid, that serial communication problem. Certainly, everybody can see it before the meeting. Obviously, as a board packet material, and and that kind of stuff for sure. Just how back and forth we can have. I'll have to take a look.
I'll follow up with you after sometime in the beginning of April to see if you have a different determination on that. Okay, thank you. Okay, Ikaika.
Okay, Ikaika, you want to wrap it up?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Some of the remaining slides aren't super critical. I think we covered the main topics that we needed to. Just again, this is the consultation effort for these activities. So once it gets implemented into the PA, these projects won't come up.
Oh, you're fading, Ikaika.
Check, microphone check. Can you hear me?
Maybe move closer to your mic.
Can you guys hear me? Is that better?
Not really.
Is that better? No? Still no? Yeah, can you hear me now? Yes, I can.
Sure.
Oh, okay.
I see we have a mahalo.
That's it. Yeah, mahalo.
Gee, so thank you, Ikaika and Barbara and Pua. And a comment for Kamuela. Is it possible you can put this PowerPoint so we can review it before we send our comments to you?
Yeah, Chair, it's in the, so the link to the documents that we sent previous to the meeting, the presentation is one of those
Is it one of
resources.
those? Okay, awesome. Yeah, because I think we'd like to go over the PowerPoint and then make comments. Thank you. All right, so thank you again. And I appreciate your taking the time to come before the commission in order to get our comments back to you as far as the PA is concerned and the project. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mahalo.
Mahalo. So is Nicole on? Did she get tired? And
yes, I'm on.
Nicole, my dear, hi.
Hi.
So just to introduce and say you have Mama and Papa with you.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, gosh. You can see them in the background.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm trying to
All right,
hide
dear.
them, but they know. Can ask you about the last or make a comment about the PowerPoint, and it's too late, yeah.
No, not.
Oh.
Just make a comment and then don't forget we can make written comments too. Come.
Oh yeah. I just wanted to say I like the I like it. I've read through it. Thank you to Kim. She sent me a hard copy because I get a hard time staying on the computer and reading through all of this. So she sent me a hard copy and I did read through it, and I think it's for me, I think it'll work. And so long as other whatever entities don't piggyback on this and then try to make it to where, since this is happening for bridges, that it can happen for us. That's my only comment.
So make the comment in writing to.
Okay, I will. Yeah.
All right, dear. Okay, so at this time I'm going to move to our next item on our agenda, and that's the CRC action plan and priorities. And our commission's newly formed subcommittee of planning is tasked with developing and proposing an action plan to the CRC. The purpose of this discussion is to hear suggestions from the full commission regarding the forthcoming action plan proposal. Commissioners are encouraged to review and compare the 2015 action plan and the 2018 to 2020 action plan in preparation for this discussion. Commissioner Hirano is chair of the subcommittee of planning with assistance from the staff who will facilitate this discussion. So, Kamo, you want to say a few words first, and then we'll go to Kilohana.
Sure. Thanks, Chair, and everyone else. And also, especially thank you to Kilohana for stepping up for this subcommittee and this exercise. Basically, at our first subcommittee meeting, the subcommittee was just talking about how do we want to go forward, what does our action plan look like, and do we want to update priorities? But before we go back to that discussion, we thought it would be good to get mana'o from the rest of the commissioners, again, because this work can't involve all of us at the same time unless we're doing it at one of these meetings. So here's your opportunity to, hopefully you folks reviewed the documents that was attached relating to this agenda item, and you guys have some comments. And again, even if there's things that you didn't see that was a previous priority, now's the time to try and to articulate that. So that's it for me. I don't want, so I'll just pass it back to you, Chair.
All right, thank you. So Kilohana.
Thank you, Chair. Your subcommittee of the Cultural Resources Commission for the action planning action plan subcommittee met on, when did we meet? It was I think it was February, that Wednesday, which would normally have been a commission meeting. And at that time, the committee reviewed the previous action plans and noticed within the action plans, there are different formats that have been laid out. You know, the 2015 action plan listed a goal, and then year one actions, and then the next goal in year two actions. And then the 2018 to 2020 action plan laid out the goal and sub-bullets. So one of the things that we would like to get agreement on is what format we would like as the CRC, whether it is a long, I won't say long range because it's not too long, but how long of a action plan we want. Is it an annual action plan, or is it a 3-year action plan with annual milestones and updates, or a 3-year action plan, or a 5-year action plan with just milestones for those 5 years or those 3 years. So that was the one thing that we wanted to do, to get some comments on from the commission. And I'll quickly go through the goals that we want to achieve at this particular time, and then come back to them individually to get some feedback from the commission. Secondly, we would like to go through the already established goals of the action that was listed with the original action plans, and see if those are still applicable to the commission. If they are not, let's get to an agreement to remove those. And if there are things that we believe need to be added, add those as well. And then lastly is what detail do we want in that? So at this time, if we could take a look at a timeline generally, what is the appetite of this total, the commission as a whole, on how long of an action plan is feasible and necessary? So some of the previous, like I mentioned earlier, was an action plan with annual goals, and I believe it's a 5-year action plan, or do we want to just do an annual action plan? I think that's the first question.
Comments, commissioners?
I see Aaron has his hand up.
Hey, hi.
Yeah.
Hi, thanks, Kilo. Do you have a preference?
I do not.
Smart, throw it back to the chair.
My own standpoint, I kind of like the idea of the yearly, although that seems like quite a bit to undertake. Maybe some hybrid, like a 3-year with yearly milestones, maybe would be appropriate.
I agree. A 3-year would be good with yearly milestones, and smaller chunks instead of having just a 3-year plan and a whole bunch of projects that we try to complete, which really didn't work the last few years. So I think a 3-year Kilo with milestones, yearly milestones, would be good.
Okay, I don't see any other commissioners with comments at this time. And of course, this is always open, right, to sharing if something does come up. If we could then take a look at the side-by-side comparison of the 2018 and 2020 updated. If we can take a look at those and concentrate first on the green outcomes or goals in each of those columns. They don't change drastically. Actually, I don't believe the language in them changes at all. But if we could go through them one by one and agree, or whether or not these are still the goals of this commission or not. So we could start with the first one, continued training for commissioners, officials, and staff. Is that something that we still believe is important to the work of the CRC?
You know, is there any way you or Kamuela can put it on the screen? Maybe Kamuela.
I think Kamuela
Yeah, can you, Kamuela, put it on the screen first?
I'm gonna work on that right now.
Okay.
1 minute.
So while Kamuela is getting that, when in the 2018 goals and activities under goal 1, sub-bullets included county and state historic preservation laws and procedures, and using in-house talent for educational opportunities, for example, historic trails, archaeology, environment, traditional protocols, historic districts. In the 2020 update, this was staff updates. They included things like developing an orientation program for new commissioners. CRC members attended 1 training session related to alkaline ponds. Previous commission member Deborah Chang led a morning information training session, which included a visit to alkaline ponds located adjacent to Nauha. So those are examples of the type of work that was done. So if we believe that continued training for commissioners is important to executing our work, then we will keep this as a goal, and then the action committee, the subcommittee will then flesh out some details like is listed here.
Right, and at the last meeting, we did have Natalie gave us an awesome training session. And there's also, you know, I think Aaron and or Matt, you know, they have specific I hear talking.
Okay, so it sounds like that we believe that this is an important function to executing our work.
Yes.
Yes, for me it is, yes.
Okay, let's take a look at number 2, compile a historic properties inventory. So previously there was a different subcommittee who did research into preservation plans, site inspections, subject to sites subject to preservation, and then work towards a user-friendly, accessible inventory, and then identifying ways to incorporate community contributions. In the 2020 update, there's continued work on coordinating those reviews with SHPD, site inspection subcommittee, and then looking at guidance on the preferred listing style and the amount of information. Honestly, I don't remember, since my time on the commission, actually seeing this list. So that may be something that is the priority here first, is if, you know, with the department, do we have that list still available? Was it something that was actually accomplished in previous commissions?
I think this is referencing the preservation plan inventory, which Teresa did. She sent that around to all of the preservation subcommittee folks, and it's just in an Excel sheet by district, and then there's different columns. But yeah, maybe we could share that with the rest of the Hui, and that was only the preservation plans reports listed, so it wasn't like an inventory of the individual sites in each plan or anything like that, or spatial or anything like that. Yeah.
This is Matt. Yeah, Teresa, she gave me all of her files on that, so I do have a copy if you'd like. But like Natalie said, it is just the the reports, it's not the site. So I don't know if that's different. And we are continuing to update that, or we will be continuing to update that as we meet with as a subcommittee again.
Okay, so we know that there is a preservation plan list. Whether or not that is what was intended in this historic properties inventory needs to be discussed.
Sorry, I got a quick question.
Go ahead.
And sorry, I cannot share screen and control my mic, so that's why there's a little bit delay. But anyway, so as we go through this list, on the right-hand side of the list with the bullets or letters, can we also get specific to say whether this is completed? Like, for example, 2, and then there's a bullet there. So that one, the CRC will select a subcommittee, like that one is completed. So maybe, Kilo, as we facilitate this, we can also make sure we're checking these bullets and to see if either they're completed, if they're not completed, if it's still part of the work we want to keep. So anyway, yeah, just so that we can track those two and we can modify this list with those questions. Thanks.
Yeah, sorry, I think I passed over that one and I went to the next bullet, and that was where we were in the discussion. So, so we do have a subcommittee, so we can actually take that off of a updated action plan. So the discussion prior to that was an example of an inventory list, including both cultural and architectural sites. And the discussion was that we have the preservation plan matrix. Do we consider that the same as what is listed here in this bullet, or are those distinctly different?
I think it's different, but this is before my time, so I kind of want to understand like what was the purpose or intended purpose of getting the inventory of all the sites and architectural sites. Is it critical to like our review of certain projects, perhaps?
I believe that was part of it. You know, during my time on the commission, that there were projects that came up that we felt that we needed that list, because the projects included, some projects included, you know, both or either cultural or architectural sites.
Can I say something? This is Nicole.
Sure, Nicole,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
I had, my understanding was we go and look for all the preservation plans and see if they were being mitigated. And then we would go to the site, visit the site, and see if what was in the preservation plan was being followed by the landowner or whoever. And then we go back and we write a letter and we let the landowners or whoever know that we did a site visit and this is what we recommend needs to be done. Like Puanahulu property, when we went there, trees impacting the heiau. So that's the kind of things that from my understanding, was that was what you were supposed to be doing, and then report back to the rest of the subcommittee and the commission what we felt needed to be done, and then cut the tree down or clear the area, and that was just our recommendations, not no determinations, just recommendations.
I see Matt has his hand up.
Yeah, I agree with Natalie that I think these lists are supposed to be different. Maybe they were conflated. I think that maybe perhaps the reason it's on, and I wasn't here at this time, but if you asked Shipty for a list of historic properties that have been recorded on Hawaii Island, they would not be able to provide that. So maybe it was so that the county and we would have a better idea of what sites are on the island. And I do think it should stay on the list and should be something we should work towards, is my opinion.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so just to help clarify then, there's a list of preservation plans, and that subcommittee is active, the ones that's doing so. And then if we're talking about a list of historic properties, that's another inventory.
Correct.
Yeah.
So Matt, your opinion is, so we have an Excel sheet of preservation plans. That one is active. Your opinion is we should, so again, this is, I'm just clarifying, but this is for you guys to discuss. And again, to prioritize. And just for an example, right? If a 3-year outlook had this inventory as aspirational, it's not being worked on right now, but it's aspirational. And then at a later point, the commission needs to think about forming who's going to do that work. So that's just some about how we organize our thoughts in this discussion. But for me, just to clarify, subcommittee on preservation plans is active, list is going. Matt is saying, if it was conflated, let's unconflate it and make that another action item for the action list, action plan.
I mean, maybe one way to make it easier, like since Shifty doesn't have like spatial data on all the sites on Hawaii Island, could we just start with like compiling an Excel sheet of all of the approved like AISs and other things by location, and then maybe if a project comes to us and is in Pu'uanahulu, then we can sort by location and at least access those reports easily, instead of trying to make a whole GIS inventory at this time. Yeah, that would be my suggestion.
Okay, so I hear two things on the table at this point, that this should actually be two separate actions. One, focusing on the preservation plans and the activities for that subcommittee. And then secondly is the historic properties inventory. And then we can take a look at what the actual action, sub-bullet actions would be for that. With the example that Natalie shared about, at least in like maybe in year 1 or whatever it is, the Excel sheet of AIS approved sites, like for example, right? And this is work that we would take back to the subcommittee and start to flesh out, but that's what I'm hearing, and that this would now be two separate distinct actions: preservation plan subcommittee and historic inventory. And whether or not that's a subcommittee or how we get that work done would be decided there.
And that's what I hear.
Okay. All right. Number 3, we have identify descendants, knowledgeable persons, and agencies that the commission should be working with to learn about historic preservation needs throughout the island. Should include experts such as kupuna and a historic preservation professional in regional visits. Seek opportunities to host CRC meetings throughout the island. Learn about historic preservation needs throughout the island.
We started before COVID to do this. We had several meetings in Kona and in Hilo, and depending on what was on the agenda, kupuna or others that were knowledgeable of the area that or areas that were on the agenda did show up at the meetings. You know, hopefully we'll be able to do that again as we're opening up, that we can do on-site or Kona Hilo meetings to get people to attend the meetings and identify themselves as descendants or individuals knowledgeable with information on the area.
And did we have these set up? Did we have a list of areas in particular that we were looking at, you know, and identifying, like, is it Alaupahoi or generically East Hawaii or Hamakua, as we were trying to identify these lists, or it was as things came up?
It was as things came up. I didn't think we went as far as trying to identify those individuals by moku. Yeah, it was that items came up on the agenda.
This is like, I guess maybe like a Jean question, but is it possible to have meetings outside of the office, like on Aina with these kupuna, just because I feel like they'd be more comfortable, or community might be more comfortable showing up and sharing in their own spaces? I don't know if it's, we could do something like that because of the sunshine.
So sunshine is about basically public access to your work. And so if we want, the sunshine doesn't direct where you hold your meeting. So we did look, I don't know, some months ago at the potential for doing site visit training kind of things. And the only limitation that we have is, well, the main limitation that we have from Sunshine is that we cannot exclude the public from the meeting. So say we wanted to go back to the Ankeling Ponds that was part of your training previously, or something else. The basic Sunshine hurdle that we have to get over is the public needs to be invited. And so the question that came up before was, could you guys go on private property site visits? And the limitation that I gave you guys was it would have to be something that we could also invite the public to. But say you wanted to have a meeting, you know, somewhere other than West Hawaii Civic Center, because it would be more inviting for people to get there, that would be okay. You know, you can have your regular in-person meeting at another location. And if we don't do a online portion, I think if you guys remember my little spiel that I gave you a little bit ago about Sunshine, is we have kind of 3 different ways we can hold meetings. We can do all Zoom like we're doing today. We can do a hybrid. Some people are on Zoom, some people are in person, and then we can do it just old style, totally in person. If we're doing the old style totally in person, everybody is in person, then that one is easy to put any place. If you're going to do the hybrid one, it gets a little trickier, because then we do have to be able to have, we're required to provide an online element for people to be able to participate. But certainly if you want to do a completely in-person meeting, we could do that on site someplace besides a county building. So long-winded answer, but I think the short answer is yes, we can do.
Wow, sorry to take us on a tangent, Kilo. I just suggest adding that detail, maybe like adding that in there, that
and
try to be open to Aina-based meetings.
I think also Jean, correct me if I'm wrong, but Natalie, if there was a subcommittee formed around this item so that it's less than a quorum, then, you know, a smaller group of you could go into place and take on this, whether you're going to invite kupuna to hear of why you're creating the list and if they want to be a part of it. I don't know what that outreach would look like, but again, you can do it a little bit more mobile if it's as a subcommittee. So
yes, that's 100% correct. If you don't want the entire commission, if what you had in mind was not the entire commission, but a subgroup, like Kamala said, we can do something less than your quorum. You guys can form basically a subcommittee to do that, and they can go out and meet and bring information back and present it to the full commission too.
Can I just ask for clarity now then, is this goal, the way it's written, correct? Or is that we currently have it listed, the action is about identifying descendants, knowledgeable persons, and agencies that we should be working with? Or is it about the meetings being in different places? And then this identifying descendants is a different bullet of that. Like, are those two set? Those sound like two separate.
Sounds like it. Kilo,
ideas,
it sounds like it's two separate goals.
It's kind of written that way already with the A and B, I think, a little bit underneath the main goal.
Correct, right. So that's why I think I'm looking for clarity on whether or not so if we're going to put this as a goal, then and building out the actions for this, how do we determine when or how we start to identify these people? Is it based on, because are we just running a running list, or is it because we know we're going to have a meeting in Ka'u, so we want to make sure we have Ka'u community there, and how do we make sure we reach out to Ka'u community? Or is that, am I reading that incorrectly? I think I'm looking at it and I'm seeing like all these layers. It looks like a really big goal, and like then it becomes hard to flesh out what is the actual actions, right? When we look at what we have as the black in this particular one, it was about holding meetings in different places, right? Is that the actual goal, or is it identifying people as the goal?
So yeah, I would like to understand the initial purpose of this, of the goal as well. But one application I can see happening, like for example, when the Preservation Subcommittee went to the Pualani Estates Heiau, there was a need for us to kind of help them. They were like, we've been trying to look for lineal descendants and we haven't been able to connect with any of this area. And so a list or, contact people of that area, or would have been nice to be able to say like, oh yeah, we have an ongoing list and we want to share that with you. But instead of them just kind of feeling like they've put, ads in the newspaper and nothing's come back. So that's one application I can see. But maybe other people can share about how it's been, what the original intended purpose was.
The original intent of having meetings INA-based was that people don't know that the county has a Cultural Resources Commission. And the idea was to take these meetings to different places on the island. That was basically holding meetings outside of the county buildings. In fact, we were on, I think, to hold a meeting in Kohala, or it wasn't Ka'u, I think it was Kohala, but that didn't work out. But that was one of the aims of this goal, to take this commission out into the community and away from the county buildings.
So really quick, because I think we have another instance of where couple ideas got conflated together. And it's not that it's wrong, it's just, it's interesting that it's hard to direct the group's actions when it's all grouped up together. So I think, and this is for us who's gonna go back work in the planning subcommittee, is to realize that I think the list is important. But then this other thing about with the list provided is to think about like the other things that can be accomplished when we get that list. And I agree that it's not totally separate, but it's almost like looking for opportunities to have meetings around the island. That's almost like a separate thing, but it's related because
Right.
when you get familiar with the kupuna of the area, then you kind of have that rapport to go into these communities. So, but I think I would suggest, and we don't have to decide today, but I would parse these out, even though they're related. That's my manao, but it's your guys' commission, sorry.
Any other thoughts on that, that clarity or, and again, this, when we do move to the subcommittee, we will talk this a little bit more. Hi, Nicole, I saw you raise your hand.
Oh, I don't know if it makes sense sometimes. A lot of times I talk off the wall. So, but I was wondering, a running list, because there is a list of descendants or knowledgeable people for different projects here in Kona. And I have a list of names of people that can be contacted for, say, like the one of the projects here in Kona at Kohanaiki. And so I shared a list of the names of the people that I have that can be contacted because of my work as a cultural monitor on many of the projects. It was my job to, a part of my job was to keep in contact with people of the community and let them know what was happening and that the monitoring plan was being mitigated and stuff like that. So I would share this list with projects that are coming up. So maybe I like the thought of a running list. I mean, for now, until we can get lists for Kohala and Hilo and Waimea, but for Kona, I have a list, and I can certainly share that list with people if they wanted that. So that's just my manao.
Mahalo. That does help us when we take a look at what the sub-bullets under the goals would be. And that does, it gives us that first step of, we know we have a established list for Kona, and how do we set up one for each moku? Or
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on this goal number 3?
If we do separate out into 2 goals, Kilo, maybe the goal, because I love that, we're trying to make the CRC more accessible by hosting AINA-based and community-based meetings. So maybe that could be the goal, like make the work of the CRC more accessible to the community, and then the sub bullet could be seek opportunities to host meetings throughout the island if we do separate.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Okay, goal number 4, work with SHPD to access CLG funds. I know we had talked about a consortium at one point and a symposium and different things like that. And then we went into COVID, so all of that came to a screeching halt. Do we still believe that this is an opportunity and that it is something that we want to continue to pursue?
I'd like to see that we continue to pursue this. I don't know what the status of those CLG funds are, but at one point we thought it would be a good thing to get the cultural resource commissions from the different counties in one room via symposium. And of course that went by the by with COVID. But I'd like to see it still as a goal. But I don't know about the funds, though.
I, 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 I,
I agree with Jerry. I think it should still be a goal. I mean, there's 10% of the SHPD's annual budget should go to these types of programs. And I think it'd be worthwhile to get it out into the community.
All right. Doesn't seem to be other. Oh, sorry, I just cut somebody off.
No, really quick. One way to think about this too is obtaining the CLG funds necessary for putting the symposium on. In other words, here's another instance where, right, if the process of getting the CLG funds proves challenging, does that mean that the goal of trying to create a all-county meeting stop, right? I don't think there may be other ways to fund it. So I just bring that up because the way this is written is like one is dependent on the other and maybe it's not. So we may want to think about even separating this out.
I agree. I think at the time, I'm not real familiar with the CLG funds, but when we discussed this goal, it seemed like it was the easiest way to obtain funding because I guess SHPD controls that, Matt, and it would cover the different counties.
Yeah, we'd have to work with SHPD to acquire the funds.
Right.
Or to, distribute the funds.
Hi, Aaron, you have your hand up.
Thank you. We gotta work with SHPD, but then National Park Service has the final authority. It's too bad we can't just appeal to them, but maybe I would suggest that the green part is the statewide symposium, and one of the action items is to secure the funds, and then the symposium's the big picture, and one of the things that would expedite that would be the funds, and then maybe those funds also are available for other things. I don't know if it's only a meeting or education purposes.
Yeah, maybe first step could be like, could someone come present to us and detail how CLG funds can be used, like what exactly we have to do to access them, just like a short presentation maybe, and then we can figure out the best use of them going forward.
Then we can pay for the consolidating the lists, right? And getting the ArcGIS all.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Because it says you can use it for identification of historic properties.
It's a good idea.
It sounds like the idea of keeping the goal about the CLG funding is it in and of itself is a goal.
Yes.
And some of the actions to that is a presentation about the funding, and then the sub bullet or sub goal, and I think this is where Ikaika's comment was, whether or not the symposium, if we can't get the CLG funding, is the symposium still important enough that we would want to explore other avenues if that didn't happen, the CLG funds, right? So whether or not that's a separate thing, and this is that same thing, right? Like they kind of were nested in each other, but they could be separated.
Yeah.
And again, we're looking for just comments from the larger commission so that when we go back as the planning committee, the planning subcommittee, we can kind of flesh out a little bit more the details of what goes where and how it looks to be presented at the next full commission.
Maybe we could. Sorry, go ahead.
Jump in, Leah. I guess if you break out these components and goals, there might be some more flexibility, and they could always still overlap with each other if they were in different piles. Like education and kupuna seem interrelated, but one maybe doesn't want to be related, tied directly.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. So we will take a look at cleaning up the symposium and then the CLG funds as how they look as two separate goals. And then our final goal we have is reviewing comment on general plan amendment. I know we did, when the general plan came out, we did as a commission take a look and have some comments. Do we leave this on as a standing item for the CRC in perpetuity because the general plan does get amended regularly, or do we take it off and put it on when the plan, the GP is going to be presented again? Is that, do we just leave this as a placeholder for every commission? Because we will all eventually not be commissioners, and when the next general plan comes up, we may not be the commissioner. So is this something that we want to make sure is always on here? And then we can put in some language about pending GP revisions or something, right? So that it's not something where we're always saying, we've got to make sure we get to this, even though it's not a thing at the time.
Makes sense, to leave it on. As you had mentioned, we're not going to be, we have drop dead dates on our time on the commission. And this is something that I think that needs to be on as a reminder that it needs to be done.
Are there other important county plans that are coming up as well? I don't know enough about the county. Maybe Kamu can explain. But is there the agriculture plans or other big plans that we might nest under a bigger goal of review and comment on pertinent county planning or something like that?
I think the most pertinent ones would be the community development plans, but they're not under the updating process yet. So when those come up, I think each one of those plans has a section that talks about natural and cultural resources. So I think that would be pertinent, but again, they're not up for review yet. I think possibly there's a climate change document being worked on. And then there could be some other things coming from research and development related to recovery, and then also federal monies coming in for Build Back Better program. Yeah. So they're not out right now, but with that question, Natalie, I'll put out some feelers to the people I know that are working on plans, and then get their mana'o too if there's sections of those plans that have things pertinent to the commission. Then I can create a running list.
Mahalo, that's super helpful. Yeah, maybe we could just put including but not limited to, and then list those out or something.
Plans.
Kamuela, I have a question.
Yes.
It has to do with somewhat what Natalie was asking, because so so the question was to me from this project that's going to be happening in Waimea, and they said if we know anybody else that they can consult with, because they're doing section 106 right now. And so is it okay for me to suggest that they come before CRC? Aren't we a public entity that needs to be consulted with?
Yeah, I think in passing, right, that's not like official business, but you're giving your mana'o to them. And the truth is, most things requiring a government permit to be done that involves historic resources, cultural historic resources, that wants an opinion from the commission, they can request, but it has to come through, it has to be intaked through an official letter requesting the input of the commission. Now, oh, there was one more thing in my response that I'm blanking out on. But yeah, so if it's relevant and if it's tied to some type of permit, we can put them on the, oh, this is what I wanted to say. The CRC is not a replacement for SHPD determinations of significance.
Yeah,
And in fact, it helps us to provide the more localized knowledge if we are sure that SHPD did the regulated portion. So that's just something to keep in mind, Nicole, is that when you engage in those conversations, we are not a replacement for SHPD comments. And that's something that we've been seeing in some requests that I've had to clarify. So yes, you can say, if it's relevant to your folks' mandates, that's in the code and the law, in the rules related to the commission, you can kind of go back and check and just know what's in your kuleana. You can say, yeah, the commission is here to provide advice, as long as you let them know that we are not a replacement for SHPD.
Okay. Thank you.
Chair and Kilohana, just to let you guys know, time check right now is 12:13. And I think Kilohana, just to let you know, I'm not trying to end this portion. It's just that the second part of this was for CRC potential priorities, but I actually think with the feedback of the action plan, we already have enough to then brainstorm what the priorities are.
Thank you. I agree with that.
If I can throw in one super brief thought for you, the county code does actually spell out specific powers and duties of the commission. You might do a double check against there to see if just listening today and comparing to the list that's in here, I think you guys are all pretty much right on point. And I don't want to suggest you need to take on extra stuff. And there is a kind of broad catch-all category in the code. But you might, as the committee is working on this, you might take a quick look at what it's section 2-229. And I'm sure Kamuela can get you a copy. Or you can just pull it up on the county's website. But take a double check against that. And, you guys are all spot on at the moment.
Okay, cool. So, Kilo, you want to stop here then?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Okay, all right. Well, thanks. So I'm going to move now to administrative matters and approval of minutes. If I can have a motion to approve the minutes of the commission meeting held on January 12th.
I make a motion to approve the minutes from the January 12th meeting.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second that, Chair.
Okay.
Aaron seconded.
Okay. Okay. So it was moved by Commissioner Hirano and seconded by Commissioner Spellman that the minutes of the January 12th, 2022 meeting be approved as circulated. Staff, if you're still there, may I have a roll call, please?
Okay. Let's see. Let's begin with Matt.
Yes, I'm still here.
Yeah,
We're voting?
the motion, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Okay, Natalie,
I agree.
Scott,
I agree.
Nicole,
Aye.
Aaron,
Aye.
Kilohana? Oh yeah, you
Aye.
need the motion. And Chair.
Yes. I believe it's unanimous. Thank you all. So our next meeting is tentatively scheduled for Wednesday, May 11, 2022. Staff, are there any additional announcements?
No additional announcements except to say you guys are awesome. Thank you for your guys' service, and yeah, just thank you guys.
Okay, thank you, Kamu. All right, this concludes the items on this agenda. I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn this meeting, please.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
Kinohana, and second.
Second.
Was this Nicole?
Yes.
All right, and we're not going to do a roll call. All those in favor, just say aye.
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 Any opposed? This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Aloha, hui hou.
Ahui ho.